Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. Yes, I'm down in the man cave, supplemental ancillary command center, because I've got to catch a flight to DC right after today's show. And I'm heading there to do Life or Death Con with my boy, Seth Gruber, and a cast of literally 8 or 9 others that you're not going to want to miss. There's still a few tickets available, by the way. If you're going to go out there and try to get out if you're in that DMV area before all the storms hit this weekend, it's coming up on Thursday. So the weather will be good for this time of year. Life or Death Con, C-O-N, lifeordeathcon.com is where you can go to get the last few remaining tickets for that event at lifeordeathcon.com. Back there in the studio, Todd Erzin standing by with Aaron McIntyre. We're brought to you by our friends over at BIRCH Gold. Gold is up over 40%. The bond markets are not necessarily giving us a good long-term forecast for what they think of the economy and what it's going to do this year. So inflation is still too high. The U.S. dollar is still too weak. Government debt is still too insurmountable. This is why you want to join in with gold, but you want to make sure you join in with people that you can trust. All right. With tens of thousands of 5-star reviews from the Better Business Bureau, you want to go to our friends at BIRCH Gold Group. No obligation, just information. All right. Get started today and learn how that you can convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. All right. By texting Steve to 989898. That's text Steve to 989898. Again, text Steve to 989898. All right, coming up on today's show, next hour, of course, it's a Wednesday. No Daniel Horowitz could make the schedule work this week, so you get a full contiguous hour of buy, sell, or hold. We're looking forward to bringing you that when you guys take over the show in the next hour. At the bottom of the hour, old friend Brian Festa is going to join us from We the Patriots USA to give us a MAHA update on ongoing battles over and for medical freedom. But before we get there, let's begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Baby Steps. Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, State Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey have all received subpoenas from the Department of Justice. Fox News reported the subpoenas Tuesday and said they related to an investigation into obstruction of immigration and customs enforcement operations. Walz released a defiant statement on social media. Attorney General Pam Bondi arrived in Minnesota unannounced yesterday.
Whether it's a public official, whether it's a law enforcement officer, no one is above the law in this state or in this country. And people will be held accountable.
Wow, that'll show them. Never heard that from Pam Bondi 500 times before. City's Church, the congregation that was harassed and intimidated on Sunday by commie orcs, released a statement saying, in part, quote, "Such conduct is shameful, unlawful, and will not be tolerated. Invading a church service to disrupt the worship of Jesus or any other act of worship is protected neither by the Christian scriptures nor the laws of this nation." The statement went on to read, "We therefore call on local, state, and national leaders to protect this fundamental right. We are evaluating our next steps with legal counsel." We now go to the globe's chief transhumanist philosopher, Yuval Noah Harari, at the World Economic Forum confab, discussing AI and religious texts. Lest you think this is descriptive language from Harari, make no mistake, it is very much prescriptive.
As far as putting words in order is concerned, AI already thinks better than many of us. Therefore, anything made of words will be taken over by AI. If laws are made of words, then AI will take over the legal system. If books are just combinations of words, then AI will take over books. If religion is built from words, then AI will take over religion. This is particularly true of religions based on books, like Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. Judaism calls itself the religion of the book, and it grants ultimate authority not to humans, but to words in books. Humans have authority in Judaism not because of our experiences, but only because we learn words in books. Now, no human can read and remember all the words in all the Jewish books. but AI can easily do that. What happens to a religion of the book when the greatest expert on the holy book is an AI?
Back at home, Elon Musk says there are 8 senators, Republicans, who are holding up the passage of the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship to vote. 7 of those 8 senators are rumored to be the 2 Kentucky senators, Paul and McConnell. The other usual suspects, Murkowski in Alaska, Collins in Maine, Tom Tillis, the chairman of the Petty Little Caucus, Todd Young of Indiana, and Jerry Moran of Kansas. One senator who has gone on the record in opposition of the SAVE Act is one of our Iowa senators, Chuck Grassley. And finally, we go back to Davos, where it's been somewhere between an open secret to widely reported that for years, when the billionaires and the powerful descend upon that town in the Swiss Alps, scores of prostitutes and degeneracy of all forms and kinds soon follows. It's against that backdrop where we find California Governor Gavin Newsom.
I should have brought up a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Wow. All right. Let's get to the montage here, gentlemen. And has anybody been arrested yet? Todd, any breaking news? Have there been any arrests?
No.
All right. All federal buildings in the Eastern time zone are open. It's not a holiday.
Oh, it's a holiday.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Okay. You've heard the old saying, and you've maybe heard it maybe both ways. The process is the punishment, or the punishment is the process. It means the same thing. I believe we subpoenaed the Clintons over all the stuff released a couple weeks ago with the footage of Bill swimming over at Epstein's pool and all that other stuff, right? We subpoenaed them, right?
Yep.
And did they show up for that subpoena?
No.
Have they been arrested?
No.
All right. Steve Bannon was given a congressional subpoena. Did he show up? No. What happened to him?
Arrested.
He went to prison.
He got arrested and went to prison for 6 months. Not coincidentally timed. They took one of the most listened to podcasts on the right, so their opposition. And did you guys notice it was the 6 months specifically timed he got out right after the election? Did you guys notice the timing of that? I'm sure that was all a coincidence. So they took one of the most listened to shows on the American right, hosted by one of the primary voices of their opposition. They put him in prison, so he was going to be off the board at the time that the election was the most contested. And he would have perhaps the most influence in the process determining their fate. We could just do this all day. And that's why we're at the end of days of our way of life, is because we could. To quote the great prophet Yogi Berra, half of this game is 90% mental. And in politics, maybe more than any other human pursuit, perception is the reality. Especially because, unlike in sports, baseball has games every day of the week for 7 months out of the year. Football has games every week for 5 months out of the year. Basketball has games every day of the week for about 8 months out of the year. In elections, we have games, depending on the office, every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years. And so we're not constantly receiving feedback or scoreboard on who is winning. And therefore, because of that, it has to be driven by perception. And often, sometimes maybe you've heard it referred to and quoted from Margaret Thatcher. First you win the debate, and then you win the vote. Let me amend it a little bit, because I think it will segue into this conversation better. First, you win the perception, and then you win the vote. First, you win the perception, and then you win the vote. I saw an interview many years ago with when I was in my read everything, watch everything, listen to everything, just got saved phase of my Christian conversion. And I watched an interview with T.D. Jakes where he said he was on national television, and he said he believed in Christianity because it works for me. That's a terrible defense of Christianity. Christianity is not true because it works. It works because it's true. It's the other way around. And so you have to win the perception or the debate, if you want to use Thatcher's axiom, but you have to win the perception to win the debate. We saw a mini surge of Trump's approval numbers last week after what happened in Venezuela. The perception of strong leadership. So perception often is what drives political capital because, again, these primaries happen or elections happen every 2, 4, or 6 years. When we truly test somebody's political capital, can they take you out? Can they put you in? And so, therefore, a lot of this is driven by the perception. This is one of the major reasons why arrests are very important. They are both fundamentally important for our republic in terms of, do we have a two-tier justice system? Do we even have a justice system? Do we have just a system? Because then people, once those perceptions become solidified, will behave accordingly. They're also vitally important, arrests are, from a perception standpoint. You need to show normies. One of the most famous political trials in the history of Western civilization took place after the English Civil War. And Oliver Cromwell brought forth the King of England after trial for execution. And he did something very interesting, but noteworthy. He stripped him of his monarchical name and had him referred to by his birth or Christian name. And this was done throughout the trial and prior to the execution. Why? So the people would let go of the perception that this king is above me, isn't entitled to the same justice as me, that I came to these same gallows under this king and maybe saw my friends and neighbors put in those stockades instead. Can I really do this to a king? Does he have a divine right to rule? And Cromwell understood that the perception of who this person really is had to change for his idea of justice to be done. And that's why he did it. We have to change perceptions of normies. We cannot have one single case where we go through 75 legal hoops, and then finally, after months and months and months of bureaucracy, finally maybe, assuming they even will do it, frankly, I have my doubts, we follow through and put cuffs on somebody. That's a political loser. We need to flood the zone with arrests. That's what they did. That's why they charged over 1,200 people on January 6th and arrested them. You have to normalize this behavior for the normies. So there is both the fundamental reality of why would anybody respect or follow our laws if we're not going to enforce them? That's fundamental to any form of society or civilization. But then if we look at the political realities of the system in which we live and the era in which we abide, we have to begin the process of normalizing the punishing of our enemies. The longer we wait to do it, the harder it will be. If we just choose one or two targets, we'll make it extremely difficult on ourselves. And you risk turning the normies away. It's a much easier case to make that this isn't just based in political retribution. If it's dozens of people, and they all, frankly, deserve it, we could all just sit here off the top of our heads right now, take the rest of this show and just brainstorm this, put out a whiteboard, brainstorm this. How many names do you guys think we could come up with if we just said, all right, rest of the show canceled. We're just going to hear workshop this, guys. Let's go over the last 5 years, and starting with the scamdemic and to yesterday, from the scamdemic until yesterday. And let's just put names on a whiteboard of people that we think legit ought to be arrested in the Democratic Party. How many names? Just give me an over-under you think we'd come up with if we workshop this, threw it open to the audience. We did live, we took live tweets, live Facebook posts, live emails. People could text me that know me or text you guys. We just did this amongst ourselves. How many names do you think we could legit come up with? Over-under, I'm going to put it at 25. Over-under.
I was going to say
over.
Way over. I was going to say not stretching like, maybe that person, probably like 40.
I don't disagree. And so you have to normalize this. And then another political reality is this is one of the key reasons why people voted our way, is they thought this was going to happen. What was the galvanizing moment that canceled our primary? Trump getting arrested. What was the galvanizing moment that for us as a show and many others who were going to vote for him, but weren't really all that excited about let's do the Trump dance again? He got shot in the face. And now all kinds of people who are tired of the corruption, tired of the unibrow, tired of the uniparty, thought, all right, if there was ever a guy who was motivated, if there was ever an administration who was motivated here to do something about all this, the guy they tried to put in prison 95 years, because apparently he's the first politician to be alleged to have cheated on his wife and not reported a hush money payment. And somehow that's worth 95 years in prison for an 80-year-old man. And then when that didn't work, they literally just tried to shoot him in the face. A lot of people voted our way in this last election because they thought the guy running that administration and his team would be motivated to stop this stuff and do something about it. Instead, they have fought us on the Epstein files, and that's when they weren't clowning us. I want to win. But let me just tell you right now, a hard and fast rule of politics, you cannot want to win more than your politician and political party does. You can't. That never works out. You lose every time that's the case. Which brings me to these 8 U.S. senators. Paul says, when it all, let's just go to Romans and just use what Paul wrote in the book we've been studying for the last 2 years. When it's at all possible, live in peace with everyone. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Okay. So let's just try, guys. Let's come up with some legit reasons why these 8 U.S. senators would not want to at least reconfigure the filibuster, as Chip Roy was talking about yesterday, to actually make you do the filibustering itself. So there's a possibility of passing this legislation. And the only thing I can come up with that gives any benefit of the doubt is that doesn't go immediately to the most sinister of motivations, is they legitimately believe, as much as we may think it's misguided, that they are the key guardians of the flame here, holding back the extremism. And that if we give in to our passions, we will set the stage for Democrats to do way worse. That is a legitimate take, but the problem is all the people who are holding that take, at least 6 of those 8 names, Aaron, that you just mentioned, have they been fighting with us consistently everywhere else, filibuster aside?
No.
What about you, Todd? At least 6 of those 8 names. Have they been fighting with us consistently, filibuster issue aside?
They are there specifically because they won't fight with us.
Correct.
And they're there for 92 years.
So you see the connection point that I'm making here. It is a legitimate take. You could have a legitimate take. Hey, the Democrats have threatened to disband the filibuster for years. They didn't do it the last few times that they had control. That's just all, filibuster. Okay. That's not an illegitimate take. I mean, let's not all sit here and act like there is no gamble on our end whatsoever. long term about modifying or getting rid of the filibuster. There is. It's a little bit like the Convention of States, as I've argued for years. If we had an intact social compact, it wouldn't be necessary. It's, to me, necessary because we don't. It's precisely the reasons that it scares you that we have to consider it. Because we're getting close to the part of the game where we're losing, and so we can just sit here on the ball and run a conventional offense while we're behind on the scoreboard, and the game's going to end and we lost. Or you throw a Hail Mary pass and try to throw it in the end zone, and yeah, there's a risk, and it often doesn't work, but you accrue and accept that risk because the alternative is the loss, and that's the risk that you can't accept. The same thing kind of applies here from a filibuster standpoint. I mean, if you don't think that we're at some kind of a breaking point, I would love to know and put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around you to find out what you think it would be. But see, they're not, in my opinion, they don't get the benefit of the doubt of that conversation, of the benefit of the doubt, because almost all of those names have been nowhere to be found on any meaningful fight of the last few years. And if anything, they've even opposed us on every meaningful fight of the last few years. So that's how you know their objection is a false one. John Roberts is way more valuable to us than any of those senators. Because like them, he views himself as the keeper of the flame, the one holding the extreme of both sides back. But have there been key valuable rulings in the last few years that John Roberts has ruled in our favor, gentlemen? Has that occurred?
Yes.
In fact, I would guess it's about, 7,000% more than this group of senators have sided with us, I'm probably guessing. See, you know a tree by its fruit, not by its claims. John Roberts is a real guardian of wannabe protector of the realm, keeper of the flame, institutionalist. He's pretty consistent. He tends to rule against them when they're the most extreme, in his view. He tends to rule against us when we're the most extreme, in his view. Right now, which side tends to be more extreme, them or us? Them, which is why most of the time nowadays he rules in our favor. You may not like John Roberts' ideology, not a fan of it myself, but he has way more credibility than any of these Republican senators do. He's acted according to his ideology, or at least what he claims it is. These senators stalling us now have not. So that's how you know this is what we call a false objection. It's not the truth. It's not why they don't want to do this. It's not. And therefore, they're not given the benefit of the doubt. Therefore, they are not entitled to, when it's at all possible, to live in peace with everyone. They've made it impossible for us to live in peace with them. And mercy triumphs over judgment, but it does not cancel judgment. Gentlemen, are their souls being tormented in hell right now as we speak, despite what Yuval Harari thinks?
Yes.
Yes. So therefore, the judgment is not canceled. There will be a judgment. And that brings me to Yuval Harari. Yuval Harari, if he does not repent, pardon me, he will be tormented in hell. And the word of God proclaimed long after all of you and all of us, within the sound of my voice, are dead. His claims about Christianity have been made literally millions of times to the eons. And yet, Christianity remains while the Yuval Hararis assume room temperature. Why? Because Christianity is not based on a book. It's based on the word made flesh. And if Christ be not raised, then our preaching and teaching is in vain, and you're all still dead in your sins. See, we're back to that whole work, a tree by its fruit again. Or as Todd likes to quote, works without faith are dead. If Christ doesn't rise from a grave, it doesn't matter what words are in that book. There's no point in protecting its integrity. There's no point in having enclaves and conclaves and conferences and reformations to defend and protect its integrity for eons. It's a pointless exercise. At best, it's just morality tales. It becomes Veggie Tales because someone walked out of that tomb. We don't worship a book. We worship the word of God made flesh. I'll stop there. Gentlemen, your thoughts. I just covered a lot of ground, so I'll give you some extra time.
Well, I mean, in Yuval whatever.
No, you had it right. That's a good Freudian slip.
Yeah,
keep it up.
Dufari. In his
as in nefarious.
Defense,
you had it right. You had it right. Go ahead. Yeah.
In his defense, it's kind of refreshing to hear a pastor believe what he actually he says and say it with conviction. I mean, that's a church. You saw a church there.
Agreed.
He believes it, and he's going to take it to the ends of the earth. How about your church? How convicted is it? See, that's the problem, which is why, based on everything Steve just said, you should prepare for your church to be invaded this weekend in Minneapolis and everywhere across the country, because we don't believe like he does. That's the elevator speech of what I'm taking away from what Steve just said, and Yuval Harari. He believes. All the people who listen to him believe. You have fuzzy feelings. That's what you've got. And you don't have conviction, and you've got distraction, and you've got comfort. Oh, they plan on getting very uncomfortable, and you right along with them. I can't make it any more plain than that. So just prepare for your church to be invaded this weekend. What are you prepared to do?
If we take the pre-millennial perspective, I could see Yuval Noah Harari definitely being, the prophet? For sure, or whatever the term is that they use in Left Behind. I don't think he is.
Oh, the false prophet to the
false
beast,
prophet, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's Antichrist material, but he's definitely an ambassador, an apostle for that. Because what you heard in that clip is he is declaring himself God. He is all gods. He's declaring himself the Muslim God, the Jewish God, the Christian God. He's declaring that. Mm-hmm. And here's why. Because he says that AI already understands words and forms words, puts them in order better than humans. And what happens when the foremost expert on any of these religions is not a human being, but an AI? What he's not saying there is who programs the AI.
Correct.
Yuval Noah Harari does.
Correct, he does.
So therefore, Who is God? Yuval Noah Harari. That is fundamentally Antichrist. Mm-hmm. We've seen 2 of these incidents in the last couple of weeks, or in the last week. Not even a week. Communist orcs storming a church service, essentially asking, "Where's your God now?" And Yuval Noah Harari getting up on stage at the World Economic Forum saying, "I'm your God now." Or people like me. If you don't know the stakes after seeing that in very, very plain terms, then you probably never will.
Here's the thing you guys need to understand is I don't like losing. I hate it. There's probably nothing in this world I hate more than losing. I can't stand it. I'm absolutely one of the worst losers you're ever going to meet. And I can't tell you how proud of that I am. I prayed about it, and I feel real good about it, in fact. If anything, I'm going to be even a worse loser as I get older. I'm going to hate it all the more. Show me someone who's a good loser, I'll show you a loser. All right? I don't want to be doing the show mid-November and December later this year in the fourth quarter that I can see coming. I don't want to be doing that show. I see the train coming. It's rolling around the bend. We can hear it. We can hear conductor yanked the cord. We can hear it. All right. So there's plenty of other shows that you guys want to go here and be heavy petted, go there. We're the show. We want to win. I want to win. And no, I'm not just going to sit here while our team sucks and spin it. It's not how I'm wired. Do better.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, scammers and criminals, man, they really raised the stakes in 2025. And in 2026, the choice is yours. You can act or stay exposed. There was a massive turning point last year. Threats to privacy, security became more powerful, more precise, harder to stop. And the scams didn't just increase, they leapt forward in complexity. That means your personal information, your name, your address, your phone number, family members, age, online behavior is now more available than ever before. In the last year alone, 100 million Americans were exposed in the Change Healthcare ransomware attack. 73 million AT&T customers had their social security numbers and passcodes appear on the dark web. Tens of millions affected by the Ticketmaster breach, and on it goes. And that's where Patriot Protect comes in. They can help you remove your personal data from the internet, pardon me, wiping it from Google and every major website. Pardon me again, where scammers, cyber criminals, and stalkers search for targets. Listen, you never agreed to share this information, and now you can take it back. Patriot Protect finds and deletes your personal information from over 240 people's search engines and data brokers, the exact sites the criminals are using to case people before they strike. All right, so if you want to start 2026 with less exposure and more control, use my code Steve for 15% off all Patriot Protect plans at patriot-protect.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve for 15% off. Patriot-protect.com/Steve. Promo code Steve. That's patriot-protect.com/Steve. Promo code Steve. All right, let's welcome in good friend of the show, doing the Lord's work, Brian Festa from We the Patriots USA. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, it's good. Better now that you're here. Before we get into some of the specific things you guys are working on and issues our audience I know is going to want to get updated on, kind of give us, a full year now check-in on MAHA as a movement with unprecedented ability to wield power in the nation's capital, and you're downstream from that now, right? I mean, you would be fighting in the provincial courthouses where those gains should be the most realized and the most progress could be sustained and fulfilled. So I think you have a pretty good perspective. So where are we at a year into this?
Well, on the one hand, I want to say we've made tremendous strides, and we have at the federal level in Washington, D.C. My friend, Bobby Kennedy, has done some great things at HHS and the CDC. So surely there's been great progress there. But in deep blue prison states, as I like to call them, my former home state of Connecticut, places like California, New York, the more things change, the more they stay the same, Steve. And actually, more than that, they've gotten worse. And people on the ground, people, that I still stay in contact with, tell me things are worse here than they've ever been because they've doubled down. They've dug in their heels. What they are moving to do, and we're hearing this, and this is just inside information I have from the state of Connecticut, they are moving to actually codify the vaccine schedule, the old vaccine schedule. Because as you know, the CDC made some significant changes a couple of weeks ago in reducing the number of childhood vaccinations on its schedule from 17 to 11. And that was after looking at scientific data, looking at what happens in other developed nations like Denmark and Germany, and the health outcomes, comparing the health outcomes of children there to children in the United States, and finding that children in the U.S. are not healthier, receiving more vaccines. But states like Connecticut are saying, well, we need to rush now and put it into law. There was also a bill in New Jersey. We need to put it into law to protect the old way, the old guard, so that all of these changes coming from the MAHA movement in Washington, D.C., do not affect us. It's really sickening. So we have had to fight harder than ever for people in states like California. We have a case in the Ninth Circuit right now, and Connecticut. We have a lot of cases there because it's just, they've doubled down. But I like what they're doing at the federal level, because in states that actually have a degree of sanity, like the state I live in now, Idaho, they are actually listening to what's coming out of the federal government and the changes to the health recommendations. They're listening to people that are actually looking at real science and not just repeating talking points. So I think we have a lot of reason to be positive, to be optimistic, but we still have to remember that there are still people that live in California, Steve, believe it or not. There are people that live there.
Are we in a situation where maybe it's clear they're going to get more committed to their cult the more that we get committed to telling the truth about it. Your family made that decision. Are more families just going to sadly have to make the decision? I mean, this has been done before in American history. People had to move for civil rights. That's happened before. Are there just millions of people that are just going to have to realize, I don't have any agency here. There's nothing that will be done, and I just have to move to a free state? Is that just where we are to some degree?
Yes. And it's only gotten worse since COVID. The divide has deepened. Mm-hmm. We haven't come more together. I was hoping, obviously, with the new presidential administration and all of these changes being made, that, changes that are based in science. Again, there's actual science to back this up. The children are not healthier receiving more shots, and that these shots do need to be studied. But no. The divide has deepened even more. They are more firmly entrenched in their camp than ever before. And it's not changing, because if you look at the makeup of their state legislatures, it is overwhelmingly a supermajority, as you know, in those states. Mm-hmm. There is no way, I hate to say it for my friends in Connecticut who are listening, there is no way the Republicans are taking back that legislature. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes. And I would be very, very surprised if a Republican governor wins election there, a true conservative Republican who actually believes in the Constitution and upholds it, gets elected in Connecticut. I know Aaron Stewart is running there, Ryan Fazio, that they're making some great strides. They're working very hard. I have friends there that are working on campaigns that are doing what they can, but I'm sorry, folks, I don't see it happening. I see that there are two Americas. You have the communist, Marxist, socialist America, which is states like Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, California, and then you have Minnesota. I'll throw that in there because that's in the news now. And then you have you have free states. You have Florida. You have Texas. You have Idaho. That's it. That's where we are.
All right, let's get to a couple of action points of what you guys are working on right now. Let's start with this certified letter that you just sent to HHS Secretary RFK Jr. Tell us about that.
That's huge. Something really, really big happened quietly, kind of overnight, undercover. People didn't realize how big of a deal it was when the CDC announced on January 5th that it was amending its childhood immunization schedule to stop recommending several vaccinations for routine use in children. 6 vaccinations were removed. Once that came out, those in the health freedom community, the circles I run in, many started putting posts out online. Oh, great! Now we can sue the vaccine makers for injuries and death. All of the injuries and deaths that have occurred over the last 4 decades, we can finally sue them because, as you know, the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act placed liability protection on the vaccine manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies. But it's not quite that simple. There's one more step we need to take, and that is removing those vaccines from the vaccine injury table. So there's actually a table of vaccines that are listed within the statute that you can recover through the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. That program is notoriously difficult to obtain relief through. The awards are notoriously small. Only about $5.5 billion has been paid out in damages from the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program since it began in 1988. So we're talking going on 4 decades now. Whereas you look at, for instance, the opioid litigation settlements, just since 2021, almost $60 billion, I think it's $57.7 billion has been agreed to be paid out. So that's the kind of money that should be paid out, actually much more than that, to victims of vaccine injury and death. But they've been blocked from going into federal court, regular court, to seek recovery. So we have asked Secretary Kennedy, who has rulemaking authority to make those changes to the vaccine injury table, so that we will be able to hold the pharmaceutical companies liable. Finally, they won't have that immunity protection. So we sent a formal letter, a certified letter, just yesterday to Secretary Kennedy. We were joined by Stand for Health Freedom and Health Freedom Defense Fund, 2 wonderful organizations that we work with, and we are awaiting his response now.
That's good. That's good. Now, the Second Circuit right now seems to be a major battleground, and there's a precedent-setting case there. You guys have a mirroring case to that case in that exact same circuit court. So first, tell our audience, where is the Second Circuit? What states does that entail? And then why is this the potential a potential landmark ruling when it comes to medical freedom in MAHA?
So the Second Circuit includes New York, Connecticut, and Vermont. Don't ask me why. Those are the three states in the Second Circuit. And a case was filed on behalf of 3 Amish community schools. That was not my case. That was a case initially brought by the amazing attorney, Aaron Siri. That went to the Second Circuit because the state of New York was fining these schools because they continued to honor religious exemptions to vaccinations for children, even though the state removed that exemption in 2019. So they had massive fines, 6-figure fines for these schools. They lost at the Second Circuit. The Second Circuit ruled in favor of the state. They appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court granted cert review just to look at the case and then remanded it back to the Second Circuit to issue a new decision in light of Mahmoud v. Taylor, which was this landmark Supreme Court case last year, you remember, on behalf of those parents in Maryland who sued their school district because they refused to allow their children to opt out of LGBTQ curriculum. And what did the Supreme Court say there? You don't shed your First Amendment free exercise of religion rights at the schoolhouse door. You retain your First Amendment rights even in the public school classroom. So the Supreme Court, very importantly, has remanded this case back to the Second Circuit and ordered them to issue a new decision in light of the Mahmoud v. Taylor precedent, which I've always said since it was issued last year. I was saying it was going to be landmark for health freedom because the Supreme Court specifically said you have to honor parents' religious freedom even in a public school classroom. If that applies to curriculum, how much more does it apply to something the state is trying to forcibly inject into your children's bodies?
So is this... Just let me help explain this for the layman like myself out there. Is this the Supreme Court essentially warning the Second Circuit by doing this?
I won't go so far as to call it a warning, but they are telling them that you cannot ignore this precedent because that's what's been happening so far. Our case, we have a case of almost identical facts in Connecticut. Milford Christian School, the state threatened to shut them down unless they forced all of the kids to be vaccinated or expelled students who weren't. They continued to honor religious exemptions. We filed a federal lawsuit. It's now pending before that same Second Circuit. So there's a chance these cases could be consolidated actually and heard together because the legal issues are identical. But because we filed a supplemental brief as soon as Mahmoud was decided and asked the district court to apply it. They didn't. They said that it didn't apply. Okay, I'll just put it that way. Ninth Circuit, same thing. We have asked the Ninth Circuit. We have a school vaccine case there as well. We have asked them to apply Mahmoud. In light of Mahmoud, you must now recognize that parents do have this right, which should have been recognized all along, to religious freedom. So now we have the Supreme Court saying you have to apply Mahmoud. And that's what's huge. I can say it all day long. You can say it, Steve. People don't listen to us.
I want to make sure our audience understands the game here. Stare decisis, stare decisis. We have to honor precedent above all things, not natural law, not divine law, not your own common sense. Precedent, no matter what is conjured from the bowels of the depraved minds of their judges, precedent is supreme until we have a court that tilts in our favor, and then not so much. Guys, are you guys seeing the game being played here? Okay, it's rules for me or for thee, not for me, and it's just what I say all the time. We're not a nation of laws. We never have been. We're a nation of political will, and we always will be. And that goes to where I wanted to close out with. We got about 2.5 minutes here, Brian. Even in the free state of Florida, you are fighting a fundamental case that I think has a key event coming up later today, in fact. So tell us about that in the time we have.
Yes, there's a hearing today where the state of Florida is trying to terminate the parental rights of a mother whose child was stolen, was medically kidnapped by the state simply because she was using a different medication than the ones the doctors at the hospital wanted her to use to treat her daughter's cystic fibrosis. The child was not harmed. The child was not neglected. There were no signs of abuse. And actually, the medication that the mother was using was a medication that's been used to treat cystic fibrosis since the 1950s. We're not talking about some radical drug that is harmful. No, actually, the medication that they wanted her to use, Steve, has a black box warning.
So she's not doing copper bracelets. She's not, waving wampum and sweat lodging her kid for cystic fibrosis. That's not happening here.
No, and we wouldn't be taking the case if that were the case. Okay, we're not going to defend someone who actually is abusing their child. Absolutely not. That's not what was happening here. The child was healthy. This child, 7 years old, was running around without the use of oxygen, laughing, playing when DCF workers knocked on her door. And by the way, I've seen the body cam footage. I can't release it because there's a gag order in the case. They were laughing, Steve, smiling and laughing as they entered the house to rip this child out of her mother's arms. And it's just heartbreaking. I am so enraged by this case, but we've made a commitment here, We the Patriots USA, to end medical kidnapping in America. That hearing is happening today. I don't have the outcome yet, but I will keep you updated on that. We're going to continue fighting for her. We've only raised a couple $1,000s towards her legal expenses. This hasn't been advertised as much because it happened right the day after Christmas, I think, is when this story broke. So obviously with the holidays and everything, people haven't really heard about it, but go to wethepatriotsusa.org, check it out. And if you can, please support her legal fund. We do have a fundraiser up there. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see under our legal news and updates, it's listed right there on our homepage.
Folks, Brian and his organization, they are, like I said at the top, they're doing the Lord's work. All right. They're fighting this out, circuit court by circuit court, state by state. So I know they would covet your prayers. And if you want to make tax deductible support, wethepatriotsusa.org is where you can go to do that and learn more about all the cases that they take on all over the country at wethepatriotsusa.org. Good to see you again, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. God bless.
You bet. Todd, I want to get your quick reaction to the conversation we just had with Brian before we get out of here for the hour.
That last point about the medical kidnapping, I just have to put an exclamation point on that. They enjoy this. So you have your video games and your Anon accounts, and you can play it safe. They love it. They don't view it as something that they just kind of have to do, and it's a little uncomfortable for them. They love hurting you. What are you going to do with that?
I invoked this phrase earlier this week, and much has been made about it, and rightfully so, especially when it comes to the World Economic Forum types. You will own nothing, and you will like it. Well, in the case of the medical kidnapping industrial complex, that's been the case. Not that you own your children or anything, but you have no rights, and you'll like it. That's the reality that they've tried to foist on the population for a long, long time.
Hour 2 is next. All right, back here with Hour 2 here on a Wednesday. I think I said Happy Tuesday at the start of the show. My bad. It's Happy Wednesday. I'm Steve Deace with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Take advantage of that by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind, if you're a podcast listener, thank you. You guys are the biggest part of our audience. Hit subscribe or on Apple iTunes follow, and that way you're going to know that every time we drop one of these new episodes, it drops right there in your podcast feed. And then thank you to the tens of thousands of you that have left us 5-star reviews. We'd love to have tens of thousands or more, if for no other reason that it boosts our fragile male egos, and Todd and I can, as we get older, it becomes more and more fragile. All right. So thank you for each and every one of those as well. Thanks to our friends over at Beam Dream Powder. They helped me discover that it was possible for me in my 50s to sleep an entire evening, or night, I should say, and not have to get up once or twice to pee, because I was in that deep of a sleep with Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is a company proudly founded in America, shares the same values as us, and all they want to do is give you the best night's sleep of your life over and over again. That's why you need to try their best-selling Dream Powder. It's a healthy nighttime blend packed with proven ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to go take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, melatonin, and more. So if you've been waiting for the right time to try Dream, this is it. They're offering you guys an exclusive discount going into this new year. Go to shopbeam, as in laser beam, B-E-A-M, shopbeam.com/Steve. And if you use the code Steve, you're going to get my exclusive offer of up to 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. With my discount code Steve, you get their best-selling Dream Powder for just $39. Seriously, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night of sleep? Well, in this case, you're paying just $1.25 a night. Can't beat that. Go to shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve today. Shopbeam.com/Steve. Promo code Steve. All right, gentlemen. No Daniel Horowitz this week, so we have a continuous hour of buy, sell, or hold as it used to be played, although we do miss our visits from our prophet of woe and lamentation. Here's how it works. You guys have sent in your submissions to Aaron. Todd and I have yet to see a single one of them. Aaron has selected the ones that we are going to discuss here in this hour. Todd, after Aaron shows us the ones he selected, you and I will determine whether to select buy or sell in response. You are permitted a hold. You are permitted a hold, but in honor of me having to go to the cesspool of DC to speak here later today, if you hold, you have debased your masculinity, what's at least left of it, humiliated yourself and your side of the species, and therefore must be punished accordingly. So then, Todd, you too will have to go to DC, and you're going to have to drop in on old Lindsay on a Friday and see what he's up to, brother. I'm going to leave that up to you. All right, let's rock.
We will begin with our friend, Steve's friend, Steve's friend. Boy, that could be a Dr. Seuss rhyme. The GOP launches an impeachment proceeding against Bill Clinton rather than a criminal referral for contempt.
Oh, boy.
That would be, I mean, that's...
Why are you trying to...
That's just perfect.
To quote a band I hated when I was a kid, do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Why'd we start with that, Aaron? Right, I mean,
because I want to hurt you and make you cry.
Yeah. I mean, why don't you just come right over here and just get a steel-toed boot and just kick me right in the mans? Why don't you just do that? Just do that instead.
This was less effort. Yeah.
Steve's my man.
That's pretty brutal.
He gets it.
I'm gonna sell because I don't think you can impeach a president. And I know Steve knows that, who's not president anymore. I know he knows that, which is why he selected this, meaning they're going to do nothing. Find a way to do absolutely nothing.
His point is perfect. We are irrelevant. Our worldview, all too often, is just irrelevant, and that's the way we like it. See, your point earlier, Steve, about I don't like losing, it's about... Most people on our side don't like losing about things. Aaron made this point fantastically. They don't like losing about things that don't matter at all. It's not a real loss. You're not actually part of it. You've created a fantasy for yourself. But about real life, it's negotiable. I mean, this is Steve's point. And he's right. Our worldview is all too often irrelevant, which is why we don't actually believe what we say believe. This is where our faith, the skin suit thing, it's been hollowed out, and we did it.
All right.
I don't want to do impeachment palooza podcasting next year. I don't. And here's the thing, the ratings on that and the clicks and views on that, insanely high. It's what the American political consumer wants more than anything else. Something with absolutely no policy substance whatsoever and just completely and totally about personalities on both sides, grandstanding and providing sound bites and clickable content. That's way easier to sell to you folks than what the bond market is saying, why gold is continuing to go up, What are we going to do about the fact, the average, median age of a first-time home buyer in America is someone post 40? All right. It's more likely a young man is living at home with a parent as an adult than in another home with a wife and a kid. The amount of clicks and views and live reads that we're going to sell on the right next year if we lose, business will boom. As they try to impeach RFK Jr., Hegseth, Trump, business will boom.
There's just too much money, Steve.
The country will suffer. The country will suffer. Your children and grandchildren will have an increasing likelihood of hating you when they get older. Okay, but business next year will boom.
Chuck Grass.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me what I just said is wrong. I want to be wrong.
That's what why would I? That's what I'm saying. We're not serious. We're liars. We're bearing false witness all the time. Our idols are huge and shiny, and we plan on polishing them. In the name of Jesus, of course, but we're going to polish them.
Chuck Grassley, our senator here in Iowa, earlier this morning, just now saw this, said, quote, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet. I'm not opposed to the SAVE Act. In fact, I've been fighting alongside Iowa Secretary of State to hold Biden administration accountable for hiding their immigration and citizenship voter data in 2024 election. Elections must be secure with only citizens voting." So I guess he's saying that press release is just a total fabrication, phony.
Is he? Or is he trying to have his cake and eat it too?
I think it's the latter, but just
wanted
to note that.
We don't even have to go to what his position on the SAVE Act is. You can have whatever. In politics, you are the hills you're willing to die on. Okay. So if we're not willing to do what it takes to secure our elections, then that's just not what you believe. It's just not. I mean, go home and tell your wife, I really believe in being faithful to you. I really believe it. Now, I'm not going to, avoid circumstances that might develop a work spouse. I'm going to text other women at night and jump on and show up and slide into their DMs and maybe so I can slide in elsewhere. But I just want you to know, I fully intend and really believe, and I've been fighting to be faithful to you, but I'm really not going to put any of the mechanisms in place that might ensure that might happen. I'm sure that'll go over great. I'm sure she'll really appreciate the sentiment. I'm sure. Try that one. See how it goes. And then make sure you've got a helmet on for when the frying pan comes at it.
All right, so let's go to this. Uncontexted Deace 2 Electric Boogaloo. Steve, I'm not sure on your monitor how well you can see this.
I can see this well enough. Now I'm in a much better mood.
Steve Deace Show Food Cube. We've got things like Kexi Cookies, Oscar Mayer Pumpkin Spice Bologna, Pumpkin Spice Blue Diamond Almonds, Pumpkin Spice Eggnog, Pumpkin Spice Cheerio. I'm sensing a theme here. Pumpkin Spice, is that a bratwurst on there as well? Pumpkin Spice Broccoli, Pumpkin Spice Ham, Pumpkin Spice Frosted Flakes, Pumpkin Spice Beer. Buy, sell, or hold. This is the Steve Deace Show Food Pyramid Cube.
It's not that far off, I got to be honest with you. It's not that far off, and I needed that. I did. I needed that little jolt of adrenaline that only pumpkin spice can provide. And even though it's out of season now, and I'm not craving it because I'm in a bit of a detox from it. But I needed that right now. I needed that. I don't like losing, so it's kind of like, during the commercial break, I had to go to the concession stand and I just needed a little pumpkin fix, man. Thank you for that, brother. I needed it. Bye. Definitely needed that.
Todd?
That was on the nose. Yeah. That was dark.
Aaron Reale is next. Seeing what's been happening in Minnesota for the past few years makes one understand why General Sherman thought, rightly or wrongly, that he had to be as brutal as he was to win.
He fights.
Don't disagree.
He fights. He fights. He fights. He fights.
I don't disagree. And now, again, and I'm not here to adjudicate Sherman's march to Atlanta through a just war theorem from 170 years ago, okay, or 160 years ago. What I am here to say, and I will say it again, do everything it takes to win, except that which the Word of God explicitly forbids. Explicitly forbids. There are some voices claiming to be on our side currently who are way over this line, right? And they frequently get called out online. I've called them out at times on this show or online. But I have to tell you, though, I'm losing my energy to do so, even though I'm not going to join with them as they're way over the line. I'm kind of losing my energy to do so because collectively as a movement, we're nowhere close to the line. And I'm way more worried about that. You want to lose your young men? You know what? I'm just going to be blunt for a second. You want to lose your young men to Joel Webbin and Nick Fuentes? You want to? Let me tell you exactly how you're going to do it. Have a pastor in Minneapolis doing an interview with Don Lemon and saying, I have to go now, while Lemon's agitators are ransacking his church. And the best a young man can do as his woman is sitting there bawling is stand up and say, I have no comment. You want to lose your young men to Fuentes and Webbin, do that. I promise you. Okay? And that's why I just, I've done nothing on Fuentes for years until Tucker attempted to pasteurize him, and then I felt like I had to. All right? The thing about Joel Webbin on a personal level is I actually found him very likable one-on-one. The stuff he says behind a microphone I often find, frankly, abhorrent. So why don't I sit here and just obsess about it online all the time? Because we are his best recruitment and engagement tool. I have no comment. We're just here to worship Jesus, sir. As your women and children flee in tears from your church. I just do whatever it takes to win, except that which God's word explicitly forbids. We're nowhere near that line. Nowhere near it. We are not permitted. You know what? Here's the real reason I'm not going to debate Sherman's march to Atlanta. As a generation of men, we are not permitted that debate. We haven't earned it. We haven't done nearly enough to stop what is in front of us, let alone to ex post facto go back in the DeLorean, hop in there, and reverse engineer a moral trial of an event 160 years ago. We have not earned such luxury, accommodation, or arrogance. We haven't earned it. Tell your school board to stop giving your kids gay porn first. Then we can adjudicate Sherman's march to Atlanta. Do that first.
Todd, anything else?
Nope.
Next, we go to Stephen S. My response to you teasing Jeremiah as the next Bible study for Theology Thursday. Senator Palpatine, do it.
No, man. Okay, we're not. And I'm not a church. All right. Yeah, I'm not a church. I'm not a ministry. I'm a for-profit venture. And if this is me punking out, I own it. I completely own it. All right. They're not ready. I mean, traumatizations would occur. Not ready. Not ready yet. Not ready. Not. That would be like literally me resigning. I mean, not ready. Too soft still.
Todd.
That's my burner account.
Todd is anonymous. That's great. Oh, gosh. That was good.
Next, we go to Eric Carlston. Now, I'm going to change this just a little bit. The primary objective of the wars in the Middle East was always just to spread Muslim, quote unquote, refugees throughout the West.
In hindsight, here's what
I can see why you would buy that now, but I'm not.
I can show you. Make sure I get the wording of his post. Can you put it back up there real quick, Aaron, just so I can see it? The primary objective. I'm going to sell on that being the primary objective. If you were to tell me the primary accomplishment, I would say yes. In the end, you know a tree by its fruit. In the end, whatever it intended to accomplish, that's really all that those Middle East wars really did. That's all they really did. But I think. And we are the show of the truth is even worse than that. It's just, they really thought they were doing the Lord's work, man. They really thought. I'm convinced of it. 100%. They really thought they were going to bring democracy to the Middle East. They really believed that. 100% believed it. The truth is even worse. Here's the thing. If it was a scam all along, it'd have been done way better. Way better. That's why, in general, I'm not a conspiracy theory as we typically define them guy. Nowadays, a conspiracy theory is, well, I can tell you're lying to me. I have the evidence you're lying to me, and I'm skating to where the puck is going, not where it already is, because in a week or 6 months or a year, it's going to be confirmed that you were lying to me all along, right? Isn't that, guys, kind of the definition of a conspiracy today, right? Basically, all right? I know you're lying to me. I'm out ahead of your lie, and it'll be proven that you lied to me all along. Isn't that basically what a conspiracy theory is now?
That's fair.
Yep. Okay. The traditional definition of it, I'm not a huge conspiracy theory guy, because let me give you an analogy as a reason why. All right. Do you know what restaurants like never have health code violations? Mob restaurants. They can't afford that, man. The food is on lockdown. The service and staff is impeccable. I mean, those are going to be the cleanest restaurants in your city. The mob fronts. They cannot have Albert, the health inspector. Wow, there looks like the tail of a mouse here. I should call this in. And then suddenly here everybody comes digging the place up. Well, that's where you got the coke stashed, and that's where you put the money you're laundering. All right. It's in this closet. You can't handle that. Can't have that. Those restaurants, man, are going to have the best food. They're going to be the absolute cleanest, the best service, nothing whatsoever to tip anybody off of what's really happening here. Do you see where I'm getting at here? If it was a cabal of a group of people that were really in charge all along, things would be run way better. They would be run way better. The Steve Deace show wouldn't be able to do, if it was really 5 people got together and plotted out the scamdemic, the Steve Deace show from Des Moines wouldn't have gotten away with writing 2 best-selling books debunking the entire thing. It's like what we say about Trump. You're right, he's a fascist, because fascists and Nazis often let you go on their on national television and criticize them ad nauseum. Same thing applies in the other direction. If it was really just a handful of people with their thumbs on the scale running everything, it would be run well. They're just running it themselves. They only report to themselves. It'd be the Matrix. It'd be run well. That's how you know it's not.
Next, we go to Ethan. Carlos Beltran making the Baseball Hall of Fame is exactly why Todd hates sports bro. It's the premier example as to how a society we've become okay with unethical things when it comes to sports.
All right. I'm not familiar. I remember Carlos Beltran as a player, Todd. What was he unethically involved in? Was he part of the steroid era too?
I thought it was roids with him.
Was it?
Yes. It's bad. And this is news. I hadn't even seen the Hall of Fame. I saw something about Andrew Jones getting in, but I had not seen anything about Beltran. So I'm trying to recall.
Hold on. It was... I thought he was roided out. I'm seeing a story here that he was involved in this sign stealing scandal.
Oh, yeah, on the Mets, right? Yes, I think.
No, in the Astros. That was, holy cow, that was almost 10 years ago.
He was the guy who was like, but he the next season he traded to the Mets or as a free agent? I'm conflating.
No, he this is back when I followed baseball. He originally played for the Astros. He then signed, I think at the time, the richest contract in Major League Baseball history with the Mets.
Yes.
And then did he go back to the Astros after that? That's what this story seems to indicate. But the sign stealing scandal was like 9 years ago now.
Well, yes, there's so many reasons, but yes. I mean, nothing really matters anymore.
I'm going to sell because, frankly, that kind of skullduggery has been a part of baseball from the beginning. You have to take Gaylord Perry out of the Hall of Fame. Have to take a lot of people out, probably. So the question is, and I think what makes the steroid scandal uniquely different, changed the framework and fabric of the game itself, right? So baseball is a very complicated sport when it comes to these moralities, because there's a lot of unwritten laws, written rules, unwritten rules. They've been unevenly applied throughout their history. Okay. So I not much in baseball is cut and dry. The steroid era, they've been pretty consistent where that's concerned, and guys that took part in that because it changed the framework and fabric of the game itself. They've kind of held the line on that, so I'll give him credit for that.
Shoeless Joe Jackson
and then the other
is still
would be
not
the
in.
gambling
Pete
aspect.
Rose is still not in.
Right? And go ahead, Todd.
Shoeless Joe Jackson is still not in. Pete Rose is still not in.
I was just going. That's where I was just going. The gambling aspect was the other. Okay, all right.
But we keep saying,
but often the idea of what goes on inside the white lines itself, and skullduggery that has gone on inside of that, inside the white lines. That's kind of just been part of the culture of baseball from the beginning.
I just disagree about that. It's supposed to be about honoring excellence, and it's not unique to baseball. This is what's happening in all sports. This is.
Well, then you've got to be. You're fine going back and taking out any Necro or any Gaylord Perry. If you are, I'm just asking. I don't really care. I've already exhausted more energy on this than I cared to. I didn't get up this morning thinking I was going to remember Carlos Beltran's name, but you're just going to have to go ahead and retroactively take several people out of the Hall of Fame. Then probably.
This is a point where when you say things like "I like winning," it has to be about the good, the true, and the beautiful primarily. Otherwise, it's cheating. I don't like cheaters. They shouldn't be in any sport. And that shouldn't be controversial. But it is because we've made this into an idol. So I don't like cheaters.
Well, baseball as a sport has had a difficult time defining what cheating actually is. That's my point.
So is college football.
Since really its inception.
So is college football.
Don't disagree with that.
Cows with Guns says Don Lemon will be indicted, but will ultimately be found not guilty in court.
I will sell. I don't think anything will happen to Don Lemon. I don't.
Yeah, well, and it has a lot to do with what I just said. I mean, that guy's the left is fantastic at cheating, and no one feels they need to do anything about it. So he gets to go into the Hall of Fame. It's the same problem. What are our fundamentals? What do we care about? It's the exact same conversation.
Next, we go to Tyler Small, who says Reagan Republican should now be a slur.
I have no idea where that. I would like to know where that is coming from.
So this is a relatively new phenomenon over the last 4 to 5 years, where, yes, you have said this on numerous occasions, Steve, about the pathway to the deep blue state that California has become because of the Reagan amnesty. That and another matter, maybe two other matters, but one off the top of my head, machine guns, the Second Amendment kind of being degraded a little bit during the Reagan administration. Amongst the younger generations, at least some amongst the younger generations, particularly young men, they see Ronald Reagan as being this fiction, this boomer era fiction, that there's no way he achieved this legend-like status. And I just want to say, coming from somebody, I was quoted in the Washington Post. I was quoted in the Washington Post talking about how irrelevant Ronald Reagan is to the younger men and younger generation. That's not to say that I don't think he was a great president. I think this goes way too far. Way too far. Every single president is complicated. Even the great presidents, even the good presidents of our era or eras that butt up against our era. They're complicated people, not 100% biblical 101% biblical worldview scores all the way around. I think some of the Reagan hate is just way over the top. So I think that might be where this is coming from. And Tyler, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth either. Maybe you're just using this as a stand-in, but I think that's where this is coming from.
Then I will address it from that premise then. Okay. You have to be consistent in your own actions and beliefs. So, there's a lot of folks, for example, in Reformed Christianity who will tell you Catholics are not Christians, and that the Romanist Church is the whore of Babylon. And there's a bunch of them online. Some of them are friends of mine, in fact. But then they'll turn around and tell you that Pat Buchanan is their favorite politician. Todd, what church did Pat Buchanan belong to?
Catholic.
He was the Roman Catholic Church. Yeah. Does that make sense? Make that make sense. You can. Hey, I want to go back to the 80s. Love 80s culture. Ronald Reagan's a fiction. Can someone make sense of that to me, please? I think that you young men have a lot of very valid concerns, and I am sympathetic to you overall. And again, I'm launching one of you as we speak in real time in my own personal life. That being said, everybody needs a dad. And sometimes, you know what? No, every time. Every young man needs this said to him by a dad at some point in his life. And I quote, "Son, I love you more than life itself, more than my own life, and there's not a projectile aimed at you that I will not step in and take on your behalf. But that is some of the dumbest poop, most retarded crap I've ever heard. And if you say or do that again, I'll kill you myself." And somewhere along the line, every young man needs a dad, a coach, someone to say that to them. This would be one of those times. In fact, you're closer to becoming one of those folks that wants to go in and tear down every Confederate statue on the left, judging the past through your modern sensibilities and understandings. Are you sure you want your kids and grandkids to do the same to you when the time comes? And this is now where Matthew 7 does apply. Judge not, lest you be judged, for by the same standard that you judge others, so shall you also be judged. Now, there is way too much boomer idolatry of Ronald Reagan. I agree on that. And I have often, one of the reasons why you know that it was the Reagan amnesty that turned California perpetually blue, because people like me told you that. So you have to look at people in the context of their lives and the context of the times in which they lived. And you're probably going to hope that your descendants do the same to you, rather than judging you by things they know that you don't know or didn't know at the time. Maybe could not have known at the time, or maybe should have, but didn't. So if you think your pathway to the future is to take the last great decade of Americana and urinate all over it, congratulations. Why don't you just go ahead and join them in tearing down the Confederate statues while you're at it? Because you're really closer to that belief system. All right? Context is king, and context matters. Don't be retarded.
I can't go top rope on don't be retarded. That nailed it.
Quickly, before the break, Daniel Garrett has a Mount Rushmore of places to visit in Israel outside of the cities. Hike for 2 hours in the Negev, Caesarea Philippi, find a shepherd's cave with fresh animal dung, and Mount, is that Arbel, next to the Sea of Galilee.
Well, several of those do not look like anything I would ever want to do. Now, Caesarea Philippi, I am fascinated by, because that is the site of one of the Lord's most important and contested messages and sermons that he ever gave. Was there? That's where, upon this rock I will build my church. That message was given, but the rest of that doesn't sound like a fun time to me. More Vice to their hold in a moment. All right, back here one final time on today's Steve Deace Show on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. Maybe one day I can be like Aaron. We shall see. But you want to be like our friends over at Patriot Mobile, who give you all the great coverage that all the communist corporations do without the communism. So that's cool. All right, so they've got all the bells and whistles you want, unlimited data plans, roaming internationally, all that great stuff. But they take what you give them and they take those profits and prophetically reinvest them back into the values they share with you. And I've seen this on both ends of it. Number one, I'm a customer of Patriot Mobile myself. Our family's been with them now going on 6 years, never looked back. And then secondly, travels I see across the country, events I get asked to speak at or attend, Patriot Mobile is often there, helping to underwrite the cost for those events. So they are the same true believers in the stuff that you believe in, but the first thing they believe in is giving you an excellent mobile phone product and customer service that's U.S.-based you can understand. So make the switch today, and when you do, use my promo code Steve. You'll get a free month of service to get you started at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve to get started with a free month of service at patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, Aaron, let's continue on with some buy, sell, or hold, brother.
We will continue with Live Free, who says since COVID, there's been an unmistakable increase in the number of collegiate and pro athletes and coaches overtly glorifying God in post-game interviews and press conferences, not just casually referencing God, but instead Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, servant of God, etc. Again, Live Free says that's a trend he's seen since COVID.
Perception-wise, I'm going to agree with this. I mean, I've not seen any data or studies on it, but just as a guy who's a sports fan and watches it a lot, I've noticed it too. It's the most I can remember since Kurt Warner's ascension. And that era, you saw a lot of it in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, you're going back a quarter of a century now. So, at least from a perception standpoint, I mean, if you look at the last two college football national champions, I mean, Fernando Mendoza made it a central part of his platform as the Heisman winner and starting quarterback for the number one team in the country. Last year's Ohio State team was literally holding revivals on campus. So I definitely think, from a perception standpoint anyway, well, if you take away the NBA and WNBA, the other sports anyway, I think there is a definitive uptick in this, and I think it's a welcome trend.
It does seem true, what you're saying, but those last two national champions, their quarterbacks were Catholic. So are we sure their prayers count?
All right. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's okay just to take yes for an answer and take the dub. That's okay sometimes.
I'm torn because I love it when guys like Fernando Mendoza and others, when they're at the mountaintop, pause and actually give glory to where it ultimately belongs. On the same token, I just find it utterly, modern day miracle that God told like 40 Iowa State Cyclone players to enter the portal all at the same time.
Yeah.
I deserved that. I did.
Moving on.
By the way, God told about 10,000 kids, apparently. It was God's plan for them to jump in the transfer portal and for about 65% of them to end up with no place to go or play our scholarship.
Free market, too much money.
Yeah.
Learning some lessons, hopefully, right? Stu says Steve will speak at CPAC before Pam Bondi charges someone of consequence.
Oh, bro. This is almost like walkout bad. It's such a demoralizing post. Holy cow. I had to look it up, by the way. I didn't even realize CPAC was still ongoing. It's in late March in Dallas, by the way.
This is usually the time of the year where you get those big old confirmed.
Yeah. Yes. Confirmed.
Maybe since it's later, maybe that's coming up next month. But
we're going to have to wait a month for those, apparently. I'm going to sell. No, I'm going to buy on the grounds that Trump will finally get rid of Pam Bondi here imminently. See what I'm saying? I turned a negative into a positive. There's always a way to win. There's got to be a way to win. There has to be. I hate losing. Hate it.
Your lips to God's ears.
Todd, what are you?
No, this is perfection. This is gospel truth.
It is nihilistic perfection. It is.
Next up, Bruce Jenner's uterus says this year's midterms will have the lowest voter turnout in history.
I'm afraid of this. I'm following my own state very closely right now. And, we haven't had a gubernatorial primary in Iowa in 15 years. And that one had about 240,000 people vote. I don't think there's any way that many people are voting in this one. And we have an all-time record. We have more than 700,000 Republicans in Iowa right now, more than we've ever had before. I mean, one of the things I love about the Iowa caucuses is the process has a way of weeding out the hacks and the establishment phonies. I'm not sure we're going to have Iowa caucus level turnout as things stand right now. And I think this is indicative of what you see across the country on our side. I am very, very concerned about this. And there are some things we cannot fix. All right. We have no control right now. We were going to be in need of some form of an economic paradigm shift. All right. And those don't necessarily take effect overnight. Back to the Reagan angle. Remember, Reagan got annihilated in the 82 midterms, and it took another year for, his supply side economic paradigm shift to truly turn things around and be felt by the average American. Trump is attempting a paradigm shift via the tariff and the trade imbalances and the power imbalances between us and many of our global partners and competitors across the planet. It's hard to make to make people feel that as soon as a year or two. Some of that we just don't have any control over. All right. There are some things we have control over, though. Like we could be handcuffing and arresting bad people that our base voted for and want to see arrested and energizing them. It's the things. I'm not one to lose. If you know me well privately or you work with me as these guys do, the amount of time that you'll find people that know me well that I kvetch over things I have no control over is not much. I kvetch over the things I think I have control over. All right, letting go. God grant me this serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I'm pretty good at that. All right. What I'm not really good at is if I think we or me has control over something and we're not doing what it takes to maximize that control. And right now, that's where my angst is coming from, because there are things we do have control over and we're not maximizing them, and we're playing into the complacency and also demoralization of our own base as a result.
Yeah, and this tracks actually with what we talked about yesterday about people claiming to be independents. That doesn't mean like they have a well-rounded political philosophy and they just don't like their options. They're doing a psyop on themselves. They think they're above it all, and by being above it all, like they have no obligations or duties as a citizen, as a man, as a husband, as a father. They just feel paralyzed. So I'm not going to play the game. Okay, well, the game's going to play you then.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we go to Brian Dillon. This is a video from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I just took a screen capture of the training. A church in Indiana training their men for how to deal with the event that someone targets them, either a shooter or like what we saw in the Twin Cities over the weekend. Brian says we need more of this targeted, intentional training.
100% buy, and it fits right in line with everything I said on Monday.
Listen, regarding if somebody comes in with a gun, I can see having some plans therein. But like regarding what happened in Minneapolis, that has just be a man. See, that's the problem. And churches are supposed to be preparing us every Sunday to be men, to know what to do when the things we say we love the most, God, family, are threatened in any way, and we're just paralyzed. So I get the point that this is making, but it's the real problem isn't what happens when somebody comes in with a gun. It has to do with how we let it get to this point, that we have to do anything remotely like this, because we have so many ridiculous excuses. And that's what I said about becoming an independent. We, in our mind, have convinced ourselves I'm independent. I'm not going to address that. I'm not going to do that. I like to do this better. I deserve my free time. I get to do what I want. No, you don't. Not if you're a real man.
I mean, I wonder, again, the situation in Minnesota, of course, that is way out of, anything anybody is used to. So I can imagine, I can understand being shocked at first. But you wonder how many of the guys in that church were thinking, well, if I do that, I'm well aware of what the legal system is like outside of these four walls of the church. Am I going to get charged with something? This is what you were saying. I think this has everything to do with what you were saying. It's what happened to get to the point where we even have these conversations. When you lose power, or you don't wield power, when you have the ability to, outside of your home, outside of your church, eventually you will lose any power and all power inside of those walls for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we go to Big Poppy, who says the Buffalo Bills, my lifelong team, will not make the playoffs next year.
Way too early for that. Don't know who the coach will be. You still have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Hard to write off teams with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, provided they're healthy. I mean, Aaron's team has one of those, wasn't healthy. at the end. So it's hard to do that. Plus, they played more games than anybody else. All these playoff runs that would eventually catch up with you. I think it's just too early for that. I'll sell.
Don't care.
Next, we go to Matt's collection.
It's great.
Who says, if our current situation were in the Lord of the Rings, we're at Helm's Deep, the Uruk-hai are at the wall, but no one is going to the wall because the current thinking is King Theoden's got this.
I think there is some truth to that. I think there is some truth to that. I don't think that's a terrible analogy. I don't. I'll buy.
Yep. Agree.
Next, we go to Melissa Bohannon, and I took this because the person submitting this is named Melissa and not Mel or Melvin. She says, the 19th Amendment was far more detrimental to the Republic than most are willing to admit.
Yeah.
Todd, do you remember when we were growing up a bunch of 19th Amendment takes?
No.
Neither do I. Why are we seeing a bunch of 19th Amendment takes right now? Because of the belief system of the women, not inherently of the women themselves. You see where I'm going with this? All right. I mean, if there wasn't here's the thing, if there wasn't a 19th Amendment, this generation of women would just enact it. So you'd have it anyway. I mean, there's just no way around worldview. Worldview is destiny. Worldview is destiny. Can't get around that. There is no fail-safe system to restrain human sinfulness. You can't do it. It doesn't work. It's what the Constitution is only for moral religious people means. You cannot, by human efforts, you cannot restrain human sinfulness. You cannot do it. There is only one restrainer. All right? And it comes from above. Nothing else that we can devise, no system, nothing. So I just, if there was no 19th Amendment, you can make an argument the other way, which is that the feminist radicalization would have proceeded even faster, using that as a rallying cry, and then they just would have enacted it later. So I think a lot of this is prisoner of the moment stuff. We have a worldview problem, and those problems would exist regardless of the systems of governance and participation in the process that we currently have.
Yeah,
so I'll sell.
I mean, multiple things can be true at the same time. I mean, I will buy this from non-anonymous Melissa. Well done once again. But also, this is, they're not on the hook. Women on the hook for how weak men have become. So that has everything. I have 4 daughters. They're voters. I know who they have voted for or voted for. None of them are rejecting the faith and or the extended worldview that Steve just got done mentioning of the house that they were raised in, because that was my duty. And I didn't pass it off and just say, oh, mistakes will be made and go live your life. No. The same applies to the men they date. You don't get I'm not just going to sign off on whatever man you bring home. Never going to happen. So she can be right at the same time without saying women shouldn't have a right to vote now. There's a lot of moving parts as to why they vote the way they are, and a lot has to do with the failure of men.
Chesterton wrote extensively about this in What's Wrong with the World, which I've almost completed. That book was published in 1910. Mm-hmm. And a lot of his laments, or at least observations, polemics about suffrage and feminism predated suffrage actually passing, if I understand it, because I think that was the next decade, or at least within the decade, but it wasn't full voting rights. So I think that kind of underscores your point, that even before in the United Kingdom, women had the ability to participate fully in politics. Chesterton was making a lot of the same observations that we make now So I think that kind of underscores that. One more before we get out of here. Cam Dotton says if evangelicals voted at a 100% rate in federal elections, Congress would definitely get stuff done. He's posting Tim Burchett's tweet or post saying, I hear Christian community is outraged about the storming of the church in Minnesota. Unfortunately, about 40% of evangelicals go to the polls in federal elections. Talk is cheap.
Well done, Tim. Well done, Tim.
I have mixed feelings about it. There is still full empowering of arresting everybody because enough evangelicals did go and vote this administration into power. Do they not have the power right now to arrest all the people there? Do they not?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
And who gave them the power? The voters did.
Evangelicals.
And one of their largest block of voters is who? White evangelicals. On the other hand, how many people sit in these kinds of passive churches in a state like Minnesota and don't vote, setting the stage for what is currently happening to them? So I'm going to sell because I think it's more, I don't disagree, but I only think that's half of the equation.
I agree. I mean, like I said in the previous one, two things can be true at the same time. So that's a good answer,
Agreed.
Steve.
Agreed. All right, I got to get out of here. You guys are going to do the rest in overtime. I got a flight to catch. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to be from my hotel room in D.C. the next 2 days. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.